I find it interesting that in contrast to the first half of the day, when we had art science teams or collaborators talking, Peter Richards gave a good presentation of this huge oeuvre of his work, but didn't really mention any scientists you work with or the relationship or the collaborative aspect and the environmental projects in particular. So that would be good if you could address. And I found your talk actually quite interesting because a lot of what you showed was incredibly poetic. And one particular video that you showed from IMéRA, who collaborated with Lucien Bull, that collaboration was actually art science collaboration. So I find it interesting that you stopped your talk and then said, oh, now I'll talk about art and science, and you showed Impressionism, when in fact you showed art and science, or what could be interpreted as art, throughout your talk. So many of your images were very poetic and could be taken into a larger social sphere as well. In other words, if you think of raindrops and how they look and the shapes, I wonder about acid rain. I wonder about how does rain fall in different parts of the world. I wonder about many different things that I would love to discuss with you. So I think it would be interesting for the audience to kind of push these subjects that kind of provoked me, actually, but maybe somebody can start. We'll take Anna's question first.
So as an artist, it's partially a comment and a question to you. Well, my comment is a question to you. Most of the visual documentation that you showed that went along your talk, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it a computer-generated images? No.
I mean, we are talking about science. Huh?
Okay, so what was it?
All this is pure experiments, real images coming from nature. Okay. There is no interpretation of nature in the images I have shown. There is no processing.
Okay.
Strictly no processing.
Okay.
So it's the real. It's real. It's the image of reality which the sensor of our camera sees.
Well, if you agree that the camera sensors is the ultimate
it's a 2D projection of the reality.
It's a tool, and whether a tool can define the real reality,
this is the reason why I've mentioned the sensor.
Yes. So the question goes about something that Jean-Marc coined a term, aesthetic science, and therefore the question would be, do you think in your data collection, do you think that, well, artists, you said you never collaborated with the artist, so do you think a collaboration with an artist in your data collection would change anything? And I'm afraid that I already know your answer. You said not sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But then the following question is that in a sense, you already have preconceived notions, and therefore there is a very little room for experiment, which, in a sense, an art and science collaboration, or any, as a matter of fact, any collaboration, it's in a sense experiment. So, would you be open to that experiment?
You have one more question?
No.
So how many did you have? I don't remember.
Comment question.
I don't keep track of all the questions. So there was the question of on is it a sensor? And is it real? And this is finished, okay? So that's real. So on the last thing, I have preconceived conceptions. This is true. But I like to change my conceptions also. But I like to have conceptions. I'm by definition open to anything. So all these images that we have, they are stored on hard disks and they are available to anybody. I'm not selling them, by contrast with other institutions of science. I'm giving them, and if you like to do something with them, you're welcome. And that's it. That's it. I don't want to say more. There was another question in between.
Just do you think the data could be in anything affected by sort of have a different output by collaboration with an artist?
Maybe through a collaboration with an artist or another scientist, I am by definition open to changing my mind on every aspect of my work. And it has happened in the past. We have reinterpreted things that I thought I had understood in the light of new comments. I mean, this is commonplace in science. Huh? And we have seen the objects we thought were classified and well understood as completely different. I could give you the details, but by definition we are open to anything. Speaking about the interaction, I remember the question you have asked to Patrice Le Gall this morning. Would the interaction alter the scientific work in itself? Why not? I have mentioned my experience with Signac as far as our work on mixing. It might happen, it might guide our thoughts. I mean, a remark made by an artist. But apart from this anecdote, it has never happened to me. It may happen.
May I?
Go ahead.
I just make a comment on that. I think we have a kind of old conception of art. Art is not the production of an object. That was true 1 century ago. I think art is something very different. And when you take, I'm not very good in art history, but when you take a motorcycle, which has been doved by Salvatore Dali in tar, and this is called a piece of art. But what is art is not the object. So what I would like to focus on is the collaboration with Javiera is not only to produce an image. You see what I mean? All the process is something very interesting. All the process in science and also in the collaboration with her. It is not to produce something. It is not to produce a painting. You know, art is not to give a nice picture of your droplets. It's not the point.
I have not said that.
Kind of.
Well, let me answer to this. You need to display something at some time. I mean, your relationship with an artist might be a masterpiece in itself, but you know that, your colleague artist may be convinced of that as well, but how do you share this with others? I think the artistic act is there. You need to share something at some point.
Why do you need to share?
Okay. So.
I mean, why not take that Javiera is now perhaps a better artist and is on another path of inquiry that could lead her into new territory. And Patrice might have picked up something in the process that has opened his ideas to a new line of inquiry. But I don't know why they need to produce an object that sort of represents their relationship.
So I wanted just to answer to the previous question. If an artist is present when you are interpreting your data. So just as a scientist also, when you interpret your data, you have conceived an experiment and you expect something in general. So perhaps the step of interacting between scientists and artists will be before interpreting data, but conceiving, experiment, or thinking about phenomena, but not just interpreting data.
Sure.
Because perhaps interaction between science and art will be interesting before just living together.
Yeah, I'm living with arts all day. So.
I just wanted to bounce on what you said about your data. I don't think so that artists are interested into your hard disk or into the image that you've got in your hard disk. What is interesting for an artist is to talk with you and to see what happened into your lab when you are doing things. Because it's that way that we understand that we can visualize something more than just to look at nice pictures.
Yeah, but let me ask you the reflected question. What is this relationship you expect to have with the scientist? What is it bringing to you, and what do you expect from it, and how is it involved in your personal creation act?
Later, you guys can talk later.
That's the fundamental point.
The whole point is
No, it's just the answer you already gave it. You talked to me this morning during lunch, and I told you that...
Okay. You want to be exposed to pretty pictures and... okay.
Well, not just pretty pictures.
Phenomenon.
Not just pretty pictures.
Yeah.
Ideas. More than pictures.
Okay, so I'll pick up on that one. I was just at a scientific conference last week. And for some reason, in 3 talks, the scientists used a phrase which struck me, and they talk, I'm working on a problem that matters. And it was sort of very interesting because I think that's one of the things, especially in the topic of this workshop, that both artists and scientists believe there's a problem that matters. And so I'm quite comfortable with your third category, which is when that you're working on problems that matter. Both artists and scientists should profit by the best understanding of these phenomena and the world we live in. And then in some cases that may lead to new artistic movements or whatever. But I think the sense of urgency, I mean, I don't know why you work on sprays, but you clearly feel it as a problem that matters. And you mentioned applications and so on. So I think there are certain problems that matter where both artists and scientists find themselves somehow in the same battleground, maybe for different reasons. And so your third category I'm very comfortable with, that it's clear listening to the scientists today that there are all things about water that we don't really totally understand, and the problem matters.
one last question.
My question, I must explain my point of view before I place the question. I find sometimes an excessive dichotomy between artists and scientists. Myself, I work as a CAD drafter, and in your presentation you mentioned industrial design. And so there are people that actually also interact with both sides and are somewhere in the middle, maybe. My question has to do with the viscosity, whether it's pure water that you use, pure, right? How pure? And two questions: viscosity and temperature. What happens with those bubbles that that look like an insect growing and then it explodes or something?
Yeah, that's a very relevant scientific question. The experiments I've shown we're using tap water from Marseille, not the water from the Vieux-Port, but tap water from Marseille. And it's important that it is not distilled water. A bubble will not live at the surface of distilled water. It will not live. You cannot create a bubble at the surface of a pure liquid. what you need to sustain the bubble, and that's also the reason why I have shown this turbulent agitation in the shell. I don't know if you remember. The reason why the liquid is sustained at the surface of the pool is that there is surfactants at the surface of the liquid which produce these motions, and these motions delay the death of the bubble. So that's their role. They are in a very tiny concentration, but they're mandatory there for the bubble to live. The viscosity of the liquid is that of water, so it's a low viscosity, and I think I have mentioned when we were looking at the Etienne Jules Marais movie that he had been using more viscous liquid, which we can tell because the ligaments which were ejected from the bursted bubble were much more elongated than those you have with pure water. The destabilization, which is ultimately responsible for the formation of the droplets, is slowed down with viscous liquids as compared to water.
I just want to make a comment. I mean, first, I enjoy the clarity of your point, though I disagree with some of the points you made. But
that was the bottom line. I mean.
It's very much disputable, so it's even better.
Exactly.
Okay?
So that's the idea.
And I like that. And I have no answer or counter kind of thesis. What struck me that you delineate very well what artists could expect from science, okay? Knowledge, tools, and maybe might be science of perception, okay?
Yes.
What the scientists could expect from artists? Nothing, okay? And that's a thesis, that's possible. Which means that you have to go further, which means that you think that scientists should expect something from colleagues, from other scientists, from colleagues, okay? And you have a point. I mean, as a sociologist, I'm not hard science, but I am expecting a lot from my colleagues, okay? But sometimes you run into problems, and problems that matters. And despite the knowledge capitalized, accumulated by your discipline, you are short on ideas, and you look for ideas. Okay, so you present the science, the scientific endeavor, just like a kind of straightforward route. Okay, so you presented all what we know, and because of you, it was just brilliant. What are your points where you are upon which you are stumbling? What is the difference in between you as a scientist and you as a researcher? Somebody who doesn't understand enough something, and at that point, maybe you look for inspiration and you crisscross another trajectory, and it's kind of enlightening. Okay, so if you don't look at that, you won't see that. But we have made the opposite bet. Okay, but that's. Do you understand what I said?
More or less. If what you're saying amounts to say that sadly, since
we got the message. Go ahead. Okay.
Well, yeah. No, but he doesn't listen to me, so it's okay.
This is a longer discussion, I think. Anyway, how about we applaud